from extreme highs to extremely high numbers.
There are 1,438 new cases, all locally acquired. Many of these cases were completely avoidable.
Victoria's shock jump blamed on illegal grand final parties, barbecues and get-togethers over the long weekend.
A third of our cases today we think are due directly to those different types of social gatherings, as people have dropped their guard and decide that it's a grand final weekend, it's a long weekend, we deserve a nicer time.
A nicer time which has cost around 500 extra cases.
And we can see it not only in the contact tracing interviews, we see it in our mobility data, in our traffic data. We have had the most activity on our roads over the 3-day weekend of any lockdown weekend since the end of July.
More movement, more men and young people among the new cases, which are appearing in more new households across more of Melbourne.
We now have cases in every LGA, we have cases in every suburb. If you've been mixing over the last few days, if you decided to go to a grand final party on Saturday, if you went to a barbecue on Friday, I'd like you to go and get tested.
The Premier grilled today over whether he should have cancelled Friday's public holiday.
Well, I'll put it to you, do each of you know people who have been doing the wrong thing? I think we all do. We can't change what happened last weekend, but please, we can't be having a repeat of that this coming weekend or for the next few weekends.
Today is a significant setback in how we've managed this outbreak.
A setback which serves as a grave warning to NRL fans, particularly those Bunnies and Panthers supporters in lockdown Sydney, ahead of their grand final showdown this weekend.
We can't pretend it's over because we desperately want it to be. That's not an option here or in Sydney or anywhere else.
Oh, guys, I cannot tell you, when I heard this news today, I thought of all of you first, everyone in Victoria, and what this huge exponential jump means for lockdowns, but also what it means for all the frontline workers. I mean, you can only imagine their reaction today, knowing what's to come, and also, you know, people like the police and how they have to continue to police this. Everyone must be just absolutely exhausted. And it's also, you know, a harbinger of what could potentially happen this weekend with the NRL grand final, as we mentioned in that package there.
Yeah, I mean, we all were devastated last year to lose a grand final and celebrate in our own houses, and it was, again, hard to lose another one. But we are so close to the end. This was gut-wrenching this morning.
Yeah, I think as well today, we know in our minds that the case numbers themselves, the positive case numbers, aren't the thing we need to be focusing on. We know that it needs to be about that vaccination rate. Let's get out there and get vaxxed. But because we were talking about the case numbers for so long, because that was the metric under which we were measured, today was just a punch in the guts down here. Everyone's going, ugh. Like, I know that's not, that's not the metric, but I'm like, ugh.
But they still matter.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not like,
true.
you know, and when you go from, what was yesterday, 900 or something?
50 something, yeah.
It goes up like 50% in a day. We haven't seen that before, really. Like at a mature stage of an outbreak, we've never seen that.
And the effect on I had a loved one who was in the waiting room a few weeks ago, and she had, next to her, she had another person with a cut hand who had been there for 5 hours before, it was my wife, Bridge, had gotten there, and she was still there 3 hours later.
Just don't know what to be treated.
They'd come out, rebandage her hand. It's literally bleeding. So it's not just about COVID, the COVID patients getting in the hospitals. If you have an injury, if you break your leg, you are going to a waiting room and sitting in there for 8-10 hours before you get treated properly.
So what happens now, do you reckon? Do you reckon this resets? Because I feel like last week, week before, maybe week before that, we reached a point where Melbourne finally broke. Just couldn't do it anymore, whatever. Can you fix that? Is this a warning, or is this just something that people cannot cope with anymore and they're just going to ignore?
Yeah, well, we have to, but it kind of feels like the genie's out of the bottle a little bit. People are broken, I think, around the state.
But we're weeks away. Like, get vaccinated.
Yeah, do the right thing.
Yeah, just do the right thing.
And hold on until you get to that point. That's the thing. Don't release early. We've seen what happens when that happens.
With so much content online, it's sometimes hard to keep up with it all. And let's face it, who has the time? The Project YouTube has you covered with the stories that matter. Hit subscribe for a daily list of the news that you need to know.